it looks like Jonathan's joined us as well. So I know that more people will continue to get in to the conversation. So I'd like to go ahead and get started if that's all right with everybody. Thank you so much for supporting One Day Immersion, our new endeavor called Adaptable. Adaptable is the word of the day. You know, how do you adapt in these times? And also beyond that, you know, how do our executives adapt on a regular basis, and what they're doing and how they've moved from, you know, university to where they are now. So I want to introduce quickly a very good friend of mine, Craig Parks, who is the general manager of brands for Jukin Media. And Craig and I have been working on academic initiatives for, gosh, about 10 years now, if not more. And so I'm also proud to say that Craig is an official board of director. So he's very connected to One Day Immersion. He's very connected to what we do and outreach to students and executives, getting you guys together, getting you best practice information. His background has flourished in the media and entertainment business. I met him when he was at IFC, really cranking up the presence of online presence and to what they are right now. Actually, he's been at MTV, ABC Family. He's also a great person to connect with. You know, so if you feel like connecting with him on LinkedIn. And maybe there's some questions that you have for Craig around career advice. I'm sure he is totally open because he comes with a mentoring heart also. So Craig, I'm going to give it to you so that you could introduce our guest speaker who, thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here. And I'll give it to Craig.
Perfect. Thanks everybody for joining. And thank you, Dolly. So my name is Craig Parks. As Dolly said, I run the brands for Jukin Media. I'll give you a quick overview of Jukin. I'll set up the theme, and then I'll introduce John, and he and I will go through an interesting discussion, and then we'll open it up to questions. Jukin Media is a really, really fascinating company. As Dolly said, I've worked it started out in TV a million years ago, back when cable TV was the thing. There was no internet. I've seen all the changes and all the adapting that has happened along the way. But truly have I never seen a company quite as unique and awesome as Jukin Media. So John will go into the full story, but Jukin Media, just in very simple terms, is really built around the content that we all capture with these phones, right? We're all out there capturing moments by chance or because of the capturing moments that we really care about, whether it's your kids or your dogs or some passion that you're exploring, like surfing or something like that. We're all out there becoming creators. And so we have a team, Jukin has a team of people all over the world who's looking for the best of this content. And when we identify this content, we figure out who owns that content, and we bring it into our library, and we represent this content as licensors. Our job for half the company is to basically represent this content to advertising companies and producers and television shows of movies, to news agencies and other digital publishers, anybody who basically wants to take this content that regular people are capturing and turn it into something exciting. So that's half the business. The other half of the business is on the brand side. And we have the ability to take this library of content, which is up to about almost 70,000 clips, and we have the ability to turn that into entertainment. We right now have 6 publishing brands that are on pretty much every single platform there is, including television. Probably the most famous, well-known is Fail Army. People Are Awesome is probably our biggest brand, Pet Collective, and we have a number of other smaller brands out there as well. And as I said, these brands do really, really well on social media, but we also have now, we're up to 4 television networks, 24/7 television networks that run on connected TVs that are doing phenomenally well. So John has basically built this entire business around the stuff that you and me and every other person in the world is capturing and creating and sharing on their phones. So we're going to get into that. just a quick word on the theme of the day, adaptability, right? We spend so much time talking about disruption, right? And you hear how Google has disrupted, or Uber has disrupted, or the streaming services have disrupted the way we do business. And it's very true, right? Disruption basically is leveraging technology, is leveraging big changes in technology that fundamentally change the way that we do something. And Netflix fundamentally changed the way we view television and movies, right? That's a good example. But the reality is that most companies are not built through disruption. That's not how most entrepreneurs do this. Most entrepreneurs and business people have success through improving on existing concepts or businesses. They look what's happening out there in the world, and then they find an angle. They find a way to adapt to the market forces, and they take that gamble and they build that company. So adaptability, it's equally as important as disruption. What can you take, and through adapting to those changes in the marketplace, what can you make better? And that's ultimately what John did. He adapted a relatively cumbersome process in the creation of clip shows, and he turned it into a successful company. So with that, I'm excited to introduce John Skogmo, who's a friend and my boss, and the founder of Jukin Media. So John, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your title, and what are your responsibilities as CEO?
Well, first off, thank you so much, Craig, for that introduction and allowing me to be here. And thank you, Dolly. Super excited to talk with everyone today. And as Craig mentioned, Jonathan Skogmo, founder and CEO of Jukin Media. It's hard for me to put an exact year. When we started the business, I could say 10 years ago, or I could say 6 years ago. But I know my background was actually producing a lot of clip shows. Think of America's Funniest Home Videos as a clip show. And 15 years ago, my job was to actually go to the P.O. box every day and pick up VHS tapes for these clip shows, because that was the only chance that people had the opportunity to be on TV. And after picking up these VHS tapes and working on a handful of these clip shows, I just thought there had to be an easier way. And so I was a really early adopter online video, particularly YouTube, when it first launched. And I leveraged that platform to help put video clips on TV, and nobody was ever doing that before, and at least at scale. And so I ended up producing a handful of these shows for some other production companies and networks, and jumped around from production company to network, producing a handful of these shows for MTV, Discovery, CMT, True TV. And after doing that for about 6 years, I thought there was a huge opportunity in the market for someone to start aggregating this type of user-generated content that I was seeing uploaded every single day on YouTube and social media. And you had the proliferation of smartphones and people creating content, sharing content. I just had a belief that this content was just actually going to get more popular. And so I quit my job for Discovery, and that's when I started Jukin Media, on the belief that this content is getting more popular and we can create a media company based off of user-generated content.
Excellent. So, I'm obviously, when you got out of school, you didn't necessarily think, I'm going to go out there and start a company around user-generated content. What was your path? Like, how did you, when you were leaving school, what were you thinking about doing? And are you surprised that you got to where you are?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I went to film school, studied film in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, and I knew I always wanted to end up in LA, and that's what I did as soon as I graduated. But I was a film studies major, and I really just loved the entertainment and media business, and I love the art form behind it. So I don't think anyone could have guessed, including myself, I was going to probably do the opposite of film in the same genre, in these short form clips. But I just knew that I wanted to be in this business of media entertainment. And my background, even though I had this really kind of passionate for film and media, I was also always an entrepreneur at heart, where I had a handful of businesses growing up. I mean, I had my first business, when I was 10 years old, being a newspaper boy. I was working, and I always had this kind of entrepreneur spirit, where I was getting paid 10 cents a newspaper in my neighborhood to deliver papers. But for able to expand my route, I had to hire other kids, and I started this kind of syndicate of hiring other people other kids in the neighborhood to help expand my route, and I would give them 3 cents a paper, and I would make 7 cents. Other 10-year-olds. So I got caught doing that. I wasn't allowed to do that, but it was my first kind of experience at 10 years old to jump into entrepreneurship. And I learned about distribution and margins, and it just really just came natural to me. And so I had a few businesses, small business clearly, through high school that were successful, I think, for any high school kid at the time. But it was always just something in me that I always wanted to do. And so when I moved out to LA and I was doing this work on a bunch of clip shows and producing this stuff, it was just kind of a natural thing for me to use my entrepreneur spirit and to start a company. And because I kind of just saw this hole in the market, I thought no one was leveraging user-generated content. No one was building a business around it. That's what I knew. And I thought, well, hell, I'll just start a business. I think, I had no idea what it would be, but I quit my job and started this business from my apartment.
It's amazing. So, I mean, certainly, going back to the theme, adaptability is very important for entrepreneurs. How important is being adaptable to you?
It's super important, and it's a term I think Craig, that was stressed throughout the company. There's a great saying: you have to adapt or die, which is so true, and it's part of our ethos and everything that we do, that we have to adapt to the current environment. If we weren't doing that, we would just be steady, and being steady as an entrepreneur is not trying to figure out the next thing that's good for the business, the next best thing that works for your current revenue stream, and always try to find those different opportunities out there. I think just being status quo is also something I think that makes me nervous. Doing something just over and over again without adapting, without changing, just personally scares the hell out of me. And I think we always have to be growing as individuals. We have to be adapting and learning new skill sets, learning new things that we don't know personally. But then how do you apply that to your business to help grow the business? And so I use that in my personal life, adapting, but also in the business, you have to adapt to different business environments, different changes. And in this ever-changing, fast media landscape, you have to adapt. You have to pay attention of what's going on. As you know, Craig, and you're probably sick of all the articles that we send each other all week long. Even so, sometimes I feel like it's overwhelming because there's just so much news coming all the time. It's hard to keep up with it, but you almost have to keep up with it. If you want to have a growing business, you have to keep on what's going on in the landscape, because just the fast-paced environment that we live in right now. And so it's essential to everything we do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then, so I think when I think about some of the changes that Jukin has gone through, we, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the brands like Fail Army started out as a huge success on social media, on YouTube and on Facebook, and it's easily one of our more well-known brands. But it's now evolved into a full-blown TV network. I mean, how did that come about? That seems to speak to adaptability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So those who don't know Fail Army, it's a 24/7 blooper clip show, I would say. And fail is definitely the new term for blooper. It was a YouTube channel that we acquired that was very early on. What I mean early on, as far as like viewership and subscribership, I think he had 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. I thought it was a huge opportunity. We had the licensing side of our business. So right now, as Craig mentioned, we license a lot of morning shows, news shows, clip shows. We have a marketplace. When I talk about adaptability and how it applies to Fail Army, I realized that, if we want to be a media company, we have to start creating media assets, and we got to start publishing content ourselves. And YouTube rolled out a few years prior was the monetization system where you can monetize your videos on YouTube. And we were doing that to a certain degree through the individual assets, but I wanted to create a more consumer-facing brand or a handful of consumer-facing brands where we could publish to video, we could publish to an audience, and we can have that relationship with an audience. And so I saw this channel, a handful of channels that were doing really well, that were actually infringing on some of our content, meaning they were using it without permission. I went to a handful of these channels saying, you guys have to stop doing that. But I also had in mind that I wanted to acquire one of them and grow one of them out. And that happened to be Fail Army. And so I bought this channel, knowing that we wanted to be in the YouTube business where we can monetize our audience, or monetize an audience and build an audience. And so we bought the channel when it had 20,000 subscribers. You fast forward today, I think it has something around 40 million. We were just on YouTube as the main platform. At one point, we had the second largest video, most viewed video in the entire world. After we acquired it, it was next to that Gundam Style, if you guys remember that video, by Psy. We had the second biggest video that summer within a short period of time. But we have now 40 million fans. You know, we do maybe close to 1 billion views a month. We're not just on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on Snap. That's just the social channels. As you mentioned, Craig, we have a linear network where now Fail Army has become its own network that you can tune in on any CTV platform, whether that's Samsung, Pluto, Zumo, where we're programming content in a 24/7 fashion. So it's not just taking the individual clips. It's now creating 20 programs that are either 30 or 60 minutes long, programs that we control. And Craig, you're responsible for all that programming. You've done an excellent job. It's also a TV show that's aired in 200 markets around the world. We produced 140. We produced 140 episodes to the international markets. It's spun out into 2 other network television shows, one for the UK, Channel 5 in the UK, and one here for Fox. And now we're actually doing a deal with a big Viacom property on a new series based off Fail Army. And so Fail Army is something that I'm very proud of that we've been able to grow over time. It's almost now a household name, has a huge loyal audience. And talk about adaptability, look at all the places where it's been and we adapted to and we've evolved that brand into. And so it's pretty exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah, we're also, in addition to television, you know, there's been huge changes in how we as consumers are buying products and merchandise and stuff. So we're also starting to get into what we call direct-to-consumer, where we're starting to identify and create interesting merchandise and retail opportunities for the brands as well. That's another exciting area of growth for us.
Correct.
We'll pivot just a second here and talk a little bit about team building and stuff that you guys should be thinking about as you're out there looking for work. Certainly as a manager and a builder of highly functioning teams, you need to be adaptable too, because of course, as John has pointed out, businesses change, and within your own organization, you're going to have different points of view. You're going to have personalities clashing and so on and so forth. So John, like when you're building your team, your executive team, how have you had to adapt to ensure that this team fulfills your vision?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something I think about a lot. And I hope you know, Craig, and I think you know, I definitely value the different points of view that people bring to the table. People are all products of their own experience, and you definitely want folks that are more experienced than you, more experience in these specialty areas that you can't do yourself. And that each person brings something new and something unique and something valuable to the table. It's when I realize I'm not learning from that person anymore, that I know more than that person, that's not a good sign. You always want to have somebody who knows more than you, who's smarter than you. You want to surround yourself with really the best people and people who offer that different skill set. You don't want yes people. You want people who are going to challenge, who are going to ask questions. But at the same time, you need people that are going to align in your vision and who really believe in it, because what we do is hard work. It's not easy, even though it's like fun and videos and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's still a lot of hard work. And you really want to surround yourself with folks that are bringing something new to the table, something that you don't know, a skill set that has not that has been missing to this point. And so when we're always thinking about adding new leadership, I think in the senior team, it's got to fill one of those attributes or all those attributes at the end of the day. And you want people aligned in what you believe in, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with these folks, and you can have disagreements, but as a leader, I think you always got to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction at the end of the day. And so what that senior team consists of is super important to the success of the company.
Really great. So, and speaking of adaptability, and I bet that COVID-19 it's thrown everybody for a loop. And what were some of the how did this whole situation force this company to adapt?
Well, I think we've been really lucky as a CEO. I care extremely about the culture of the company. I'm a cultural CEO. I worked at a lot of shitty places, or shitty places that had zero to no culture. And I realized when I wanted to start my own thing, culture was going to lead strategy. And I think there's also a quote, and I'll say a bunch of quotes throughout this because this will inspire me. Culture eats strategy for lunch, because really culture, I think, will help define the strategy, and it goes hand in hand. Without culture, you're not going to succeed. And so I think right now we have 200 people in the company. We have 4 global offices. We have a few other people scattered around the world. So it's like 10 countries or something. All those people interact every single day with each other. We're a 24/7 media company, and they're always talking to each other. And so as much as I value the office and the physical locations, and if you've been to our office, it's a high, fast pace environment, open floor plan. Certainly you have your ping pong table that a lot of startups have in the LA office, and a stocked fridge. But those are, I think we can look at those as perks. But the culture is that I think really the collaboration, all willing to work together. People who people who are in meetings, they have to speak up. We don't want people who are not talking. We want to give people career paths. We respect everyone's point of view. If you're a C-level executive or if you're an intern, we want people to speak up and state their point of view, and we want people to collaborate. And I think the collaboration throughout the different offices and people around the world was always very strong. And people always talk to other people in some sort of Zoom setting, no matter what, or a conference call. And I believe if we didn't have that strong of a culture and that strong operationally, we would not be successful at all under this COVID situation. And so when we had to adapt and switch to this COVID situation and work from home and work remotely, we didn't miss a beat, because I only feel that way because we were so strong every single day, that we were so collaborative, and that we always work together. So I think personally, it's a lot harder for folks. It's certainly a lot harder for me not being around people, and I'm definitely a social person. I definitely love the creativity element of having people in a room, and I definitely miss that. But operationally, we didn't miss a beat, which is really great. Obviously, it has some challenges, particularly when you're in the media business with technology. But I do feel really lucky that we were able to adapt so quickly, and I only think of that, the success of that is because of how strong we have a culture and how good we were at operations.
That's great. And then it also feels like, I mean, in this, it feels like the content that we make, which by say we, I mean literally the entire world are out there making, that content doesn't really, it never stops coming in. Maybe talk for a minute about the amount of content that we're looking at on a daily basis, and then how we've adapted on the content side to the kind of content we've been out there able to gather and license out and put out to our audience.
Yeah, so we have an acquisition team that's always been 24/7 in different and we're in different markets around the world as far as like people, physical people. It's about a team of 40 people that are looking at all these video assets And I think at any given day, it's around 50,000 videos a day they're combing through. We built some really great technology to help us put essentially a giant filter on the internet to look at all these video assets that everyday people are creating. I think on YouTube alone, 500 hours are uploaded every single minute. And they're not the only game in town. So now we're looking at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snap, and all those videos are essentially going through our filter, whether we pull them through an API or we manually put them into our system. And then it kicks out duplicates, kicks out videos over a certain subscriber count, because we're only looking for a very particular type of video at the end of the day. Videos that we know we can monetize really well, videos where we can reach out to the owner. And so we kick out music videos, we kick out videos over a certain length, and then it narrows down to just a handful of videos, which we go out and try to acquire the rights to. And we bring about 200 videos a week. So it starts off with 50,000 a day, and then it goes down to about 200 videos a week. Then we actually acquire that we feel like videos that we can monetize. And during this time, I think some people may have asked us, well, you guys are pretty limited in what's being created. And yes, there's probably less stuff, variety of stuff being created. But right now, because of quarantine, I think it's forced people to be a little bit more creative in the content they are creating. And we're getting a ton of content, people doing dances in their homes, a lot of challenges, Rube Goldberg machines, all types of fun and creative stuff people are doing in quarantine. And it's really cool to see because there's a lot of demand for that content right now. On the licensing side of the business, we've worked with a handful of brands and a lot of TV campaigns and social campaigns. And so Facebook has a lot of campaigns running right now that we worked on. Google Photos, we worked on a handful of campaigns. Walmart, Uber, Geico. There's a handful of brands right now that I think are tapping into this COVID messaging and quarantine messaging. And those videos are in high demand right now. And so we're able to monetize that content and work with these brands. And these brands are coming to us every day for a different type of campaign need.
That's really cool. And just for the group here, I think it's important to note that if your average person, any one of us or anyone you could think of, if they create a video, say, of their puppy doing something cute, and that if they post that video on Instagram or they place it on Facebook, even if it gets seen by 100 million people, they're going to get nothing for that video. Unless you are one of those rare people who have the ability to monetize your own content, which most of us aren't, then that video can be stolen and used by other people who do make money. That video will never make you any money. But where Jukin comes in is we say, hey, that clip, we think we could represent that clip. You still own it, but we represent it, and we'll help you make money. And so what we've done to date is paid out quite a lot of money over the course of years to video owners. In some cases, a fair amount of money for something that they just happen to capture. It's a really cool model.
We paid out over $25 million in 5 years.
Number. That's the number. And so we actually bring a lot of opportunity to people who otherwise wouldn't see it. And what's really cool on my end is that we certainly, a lot of the content we put together are what we call compilations or single clips, but we also create a lot of different types of content. We do documentaries about the stories behind the videos and so on and so forth. I mean, really, this content has become part of our social fabric. So it's really cool to participate in something truly unique. John, one of the people watching asked, is acquisition something that someone can do from home?
Yeah. You certainly don't need it to be in the office. We do have the office, but our acquisition team is more remote than any other team pre-COVID. So we have people, I think I mentioned they're in different countries. So we have some people in Romania, Greece. I think we have 2 people in Alabama. I know there's 2 people in Washington. I think there's only 2 people in LA, in the LA office, 2 or 3 people, one or 2 people in New York. But most of the people are doing this from their home. And so it's a fun job where you get to look at videos all day long. And so, yeah, absolutely. That job lends itself to working remotely more than any other in our business.
And then someone else asked, how do you keep up with the trends? What has worked and what hasn't worked?
Yeah, it's I guess when it comes to, do you think it's being asked when it comes to acquisitions or when it comes in business in general?
Maybe talk about both.
Yeah, so I think in acquisitions, we're always, trying new tactics to get in video owners. So the biggest reason why we may not get into a video in because the owner doesn't want to be video publicized, and so we're always trying to think different ways to get that, to acquire that video or represent that video, and so we're always trying different marketing messages. We're trying different tactics. We're trying different payment options, and the trends of the type of content changes every single day. And so, if you're related to the type of content trends, there's a different hashtag, there's a different challenge happening every week to week, and we just have to stay on top of that. And a lot of that is through data. A lot of that is just paying really close attention to the media and what's being reported on. It's a combination of a whole bunch of different methodology. And on the business side, the overall business side, again, it's really, really paying attention and reading a lot of what other people are doing in the space, and finding different trends, reading analysts. There's reports being generated on a weekly basis about different topics. It's a handful of publications. I'm a member, looking just my list alone of all the news subscriptions. It's New York Times, it's DigiDay, it's Business Insider, it's Washington Post, it's LA Times, it's The Economist, it's The Information. Those are just the 10 I can rattle off the top of my head, and there's probably 5 more I'm subscribed to. It's Twitter. I get a lot of news just from my Twitter feed, and so always paying attention to those feeds and publications helps stay ahead of the trends. You just have to in our business, especially in the ever-changing media world.
Yeah, and I think also, and this is relevant to anybody out there who's thinking about, starting their career or looking to change their career, is that networking is essential. We all spend a lot of time talking to our colleagues, sometimes our direct competitors, and asking what they're seeing, what they're learning, what they're hearing. How are things working for this? How is it working for that? And that's what you guys should all be doing as well. Is you should be thinking about asking your people who have gone through an experience and say, how do I do it? What's the best? What can you teach me? That's definitely a big part of this.
I think that's absolutely right, Craig. Networking is a huge part of it. I right now, and in any normal week, I'm always being asked somebody, hey, can you make an intro here? Can you like talking through things lead to also something else? Like I was talking to one of our investors, so we're thinking about this. He's like, oh, have you talked to this company? I'm like, no, I haven't. Can you make an intro? I got an intro to that person. I was talking to this person, and then something else came up, and I asked him, hey, can you make an intro to that person? It's just kind of amazing the snowball effect that happens over and over again. And these people in your network, so I think networks sometimes they get a bad connotation, like you want something out of them. Yeah, you just want information, and learn about them. And networking is how I got every single one of my jobs before Jukin, only because I knew somebody. So it's super important to do that at any stage in your career, whether you're an assistant, whether you're a college student, or whether you're a CEO. I think it's so important. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's great. And so we also had another question about creating content and in an era where social distancing is key. And I could just kick it off real quick by saying that we had to go through when the decision was made by local governments to shelter in place, we had to figure out in a very, very short amount of time how to transition a 30-person production unit to who were always only ever working in the office or on location into a full work from home situation. We had to do that in about 3 days. We did it in about 3 days, and it was a lot of late nights of figuring out how we're going to get stuff done. It was transition. It was literally taking edit systems from our office to people's homes. It was improving people's internet connections at home and paying for that so that we can get uploads and downloads done right. It was giving access to certain people to come in to plug into the servers to download footage. And overall, the good news is for us, and I think a lot of the reason we've done well is because we have a lot of our content is post-production only, but we definitely have had to we had to pause a number of productions that required location shooting, but we've actually been able to continue. We've adapted over the course of, took a little bit longer than the post-production side, but we started delivering light kits and cameras to people who also are talent. We have producers and APs who are also talent, and we had them start shooting at home, and sometimes with their iPhones, and we started building that into the content. And it was it's been really interesting.
Yeah, I think the production has been the biggest challenge, and lucky for us, a lot of our stuff is post-production, but some of the other production we did have to put hold. But I think the team and you did an excellent job of transitioning.
Thank you. So in the last couple questions, then we're going to open it up to some more questions from the group. Thanks. Keep the questions rolling in, guys. These are great. So what advice do you have for people when it comes to owning their own ability to adapt? Like how important when you're thinking about getting your job and you're thinking about getting your first job, or you're about to interview, or you want to move careers, where does adaptability fit into things in your mind?
Well, I think you got to be open-minded, right? First and foremost, you have to be willing to try new things and test new things and learn about new things that maybe you're not necessarily interested in, but realizing that new skill set can help you later down the road. And so I think first and foremost, just be open-minded. I think second, don't be afraid to fail. I think failure is so important in the learning process. People say that, you learn more from your failures than you do from your wins, and that's 100% true. If we didn't fail 100 times, if I don't fail 100 times this week, I'm not learning. And it's particularly that you kind of learn from your failures, so you can adapt. And I think, Craig, what we do at Jukin is we set up ourselves up for failure a lot of times so we can learn. And what I mean by that is there's a guy who wrote this great book called Lean Startup, guy named Eric Ries, who really popularized the MVP mentality. He applied it more to tech, and I kind of took it myself to apply more to our business and everything that we do, where you're creating a minimum viable product to get that up in the marketplace, and you're just getting feedback. And something's working, something's not working, and how you adapt and evolve and iterate to that feedback. The important thing is not shooting for perfection. You should never shoot for perfection. It should be good when you're launching. This is when you're launching something, just to get it out there. And sometimes it's going to fail. Sometimes you're going to succeed, but you're going to learn no matter what, and just by doing things. And that's the thing is, it's not spending so much time in the pre-launch. It's really about getting it up, whatever you do, getting it up quickly, efficiently. Once it's up and live, you're getting that feedback loop so you can iterate and adapt. And so I think that's something that we've adapted into our own culture and really push that throughout the rest of the organization. Sure. Is that MVP mentality. So you can fail. If you're going to fail fast and learn from your failures.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the failure thing is, people are so afraid of that word because we live in such a high expectations of us to, be the best we can be. It's a part of American culture. But the reality is that you look at any of the biggest CEOs out there, they could tell you that some of their best stories are always about their failures. And
totally.
And I mean, it's one of the questions I always ask in interviews is, tell me about a moment where something you were responsible for did not work, and what did you do? And that's the other thing is you got to be ready to follow it up with, and here's what I did about it.
Or this is what I learned. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then in terms of, I mean, obviously, like no one out there has really the answers for what's going to happen, due to the COVID issues and stuff like that. But Jonathan, where's your thinking in terms of like opportunities for people during this weird time? I mean, no one really has all the answers, but so far, what do you think it's for those people who are looking for their first opportunity?
Well, I would say be hopeful and be patient for folks looking for their first opportunity. The company Jukin was started in the beginning of the recession. I started the company in 2009. That was right at the very beginning. a year into the recession of the housing crisis, and that was a great recession that was just as bad as the depression economically, and out of that became one of the biggest economic growths we've had in history. That happened out of the 2001 bubble too. So I think it's tough right now. Times are tough and they're hard. They're demotivating. I'll tell you that. I even get demotivated sometimes. But know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, whenever that is, and that some of the greatest economies and businesses have been created out of these unfortunate times. And it's really unfortunate times right now. But after the recession in 2008, you had the birth of the gig economy, which never existed before. And what I mean by that was Uber, that was Airbnb, that was Grubhub, Postmates, all were created in the gig economy that followed the Great Recession. And so wherever there is this type of downturn, it always creates opportunity. Jukin was born in the recession. And I think we're going to be even stronger company going out of this, because I do think there's going to be more opportunities. And I think it's important to identify those opportunities. I think we will see there's definitely jobs declining right now, but you will see job growth coming back into the economy, and there will be new opportunities. There'll be new verticals. There'll be new companies that will be birthed from this situation. And so I say, be patient, keep your eyes open. And again, some of the best companies are created during this time. And so if you're itching to try something new, this is the perfect time to actually do it too, because also expectations are so low, right? And so, and build that minimum viable product. When I started the company, I said 200 employees now, 4 global offices. I started the company from my apartment, and I had one person over, and we were doing this, and then it turned to 2 people. I mean, it was the most minimal and scrappy business as you can do. But if I probably would not have been as successful if I started that 2 or 3 years ago. Because I started it in the time in a down economy, I use that to my advantage. And so I think people have to be patient, and they have to be alert of what's out there, and try to see what those opportunities are.
So I think we have a little time for questions. We can do them via chat, or I think everybody can just ask them. I think there's no moderators here, so I think you can just go ahead and ask up. Are there any hard skills? Are there any hard skills that would be helpful to develop during this spare time?
I think you could always be sharpening your skill set during this time or other time. I constantly, I mentioned I read the trades, but I also read a lot of books. I reread the books too. I highlight things in books. And I'm a terrible reader too, and I'm a terrible writer. So I'm trying my best. I'm dyslexic, and so it's very hard for me to read and really hard for me to focus on certain things. But I'm always constantly training myself to do better, to read better, to understand other people's experiences. And so, again, it's hard to be motivated during this time, but also take this time to sharpen your pencils and be better and learn new skills and try new things, because time is the ultimate reason why we don't try new things. We learn better because we say there's not enough time. Well, right now, you probably have more time than you need, and there shouldn't be any excuses about time right now. Now it's just being motivated, and it's hard to be motivated in this situation, even, like I said, for myself. But I do think take advantage of this time right now, for sure.
Yeah. I'll add to Neha's question about hard skills. I think, look, it depends on what you're interested in. If you want to be a marketer, do you want to be a producer, do you want to be a writer, some of that matters. But I'd say, if you want to be, writing is a muscle. So if you want to be a writer of any kind, you better keep writing. I definitely notice when I don't do writing, it's a lot harder to do it when I have to do it. I'd say if you can learn how to become an editor yourself, that is a seriously valuable skill. Right now, it's, if you're what's called a producer editor, someone who could make something soup to nuts, start to finish, tell a story and edit it. That is an exceptionally valuable tool. So that's really great. And Arnold, some of your questions about how can you start producing when you're locked down. This is exactly some of the stuff that we've had to figure out. And back to what I just said about having some basic skills in how to run a camera, how to set up lights, how to edit. That stuff makes a big difference. But it's requiring, like any kind of producing, you have to be ingenious. You have to think about, you're always given challenges. That's what a producer's job is, to find your way through these challenges. And you're tasked at when you're tasked with creating a story. So we've had to get really savvy about how we identify people to interview and how we deal with bad Zoom connections when we're doing interviews and stuff like that. It's just, adaptability is the key if you want to produce. And the other thing too is overall, if you want to make stuff, whether you're in lockdown or you're or whether you're not in lockdown, you just got to go do it. That's my advice to anyone who wants to be a producer, is go out and make something. That's everyone I've ever seen, like Jonathan did with his company. He just said, I'm just going to go do this. So you just got to go out there and do it and get creative. Use this as an opportunity to create a compelling story.
I think it relates to what we were talking about earlier today, Craig, with Jaws. And, they're filming this movie Jaws years ago. And the biggest thing in the movie, the scariest thing, what the whole movie was about, was the shark and how the shark didn't work, the mechanical shark. And so, it's a genius move to not show the shark until you had to show the shark. And so sometimes when things are out of your control, or tell the story, the things you can control, like the music and the camera moving through the water, pretending to be the shark, or just seeing a fin. And so I think, that's a great lesson for everybody, is you're limited in your capabilities, but be creative at the end of the day. And sometimes that creativity leads to genius. And now Spielberg's a genius for not showing the shark till the end of the movie. And it just so happened to be he couldn't. Right. And it made a much better movie when you didn't see the shark. It was a lot scarier when you just heard the music coming. So I think that applies today.
That's right. And Anna asks if you have any good book recommendations.
It depends on the subject matter. So I've read everything from, if you guys are media students, you talk about screenwriting to producing to, leadership. I've read them all, and I'll just throw them off. I love anything the writer Malcolm Gladwell writes about society. It is unbelievable. All his books. Right now, actually sitting next to me is Bob Iger's book, his biography, Ride of a Lifetime. It's great. I'm going through that. On the entertainment side, William Goldman, who wrote some books in the 70s, early 80s that are a little outdated as far as the examples, but they still apply today. Adventures in the Screen Trade, which is called. Story by Robert McKee is one of my favorite screenwriting books. I mentioned Lean Startup for startups, and you get little nuggets along the way in everything that you read. And so those are just kind of some of my favorites. And if you email me, I'm happy to give you dozens of others, but constantly reading. I constantly don't finish a book. I always have reading 4 or 5 at a time and making notes along. Maybe that's my ADD in me, and maybe it's hard for me to concentrate, but the books I read are definitely never to finish all in one set and sitting. It's definitely, I'm jumping from thing to thing. And then if I have a subject matter that I can't deal with, I can pull something up and see how this person dealt with it. And so making notes is always super important. So I can email you separately if there's any subjects you want to cover, and I can send you.
Excellent. And one last question: if you could start it all over again, would you change the way you went through it, or would you do it exactly as you did it?
I would do exactly as I did it, without a question. Without a question, I wouldn't do anything differently. I've learned so much along the way. Again, those failures, those heartbreaks. Sure, in hindsight, when I do it at a different time, if I had the opportunity to do it again, start a new company, there's so much I would learn. And that's where I would apply it differently, do things differently. But I am who I am because of all the mistakes and all the failures I am, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't do anything differently if I had to go back, because this is what defined me about the person I am today. When I start a new company, when I start something new, I've learned so much that I would do differently. So the answer is no, I wouldn't, but yes, I will in the next phase.
Perfect. All right, I think that's it on the questions. Anybody else?
Hi, Craig. Hi, John. My name is Clinton. I asked about the acquisitions and working from home. It's very attractive to a student like myself who also has summers free. But can you talk a little bit more about that? Are you guys hiring? I'm very curious and hungry for information about that.
Totally. So yes, we're always looking for smart folks for any given time. Sometimes it depends where you live, because it's really about us making sure that we have an entity set up in that state. So sometimes that will affect it, and that makes it easier. But we're always looking. And if anyone here wants to shoot myself or Craig a note, happy to give you more information on this topic and a variety of topics that we talked about. It's just JON@Jukin, JUKIN, media.com. And happy to send you more information and connect you with somebody on that team that would have more information. So if you have some time on your hands, that's definitely an opportunity right now. We're always looking for people. It just depends on the project, depends on the day. Sometimes it's full-time work, sometimes part-time work. At any given moment, it changes. And you have Craig's email there too.
Yeah, you got my email. That's cp@jukinmedia.com. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. John, thank you as always for your time and advice. Dolly, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure. I hope this was informative and fun and interesting.
It was awesome. Jonathan and Craig, thank you so much. That was a great interview.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Excellent.
Be safe. Be healthy.
Right,
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.